Welcome to the Upshift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. Welcome, and today's guest is Lisa Sugarman, and she's a columnist. She's a writer. She lives in Boston, Massachusetts, which has got to be cooler than where I am down here in Tennessee. She's a crisis counselor, mental health advocate. She is with the Trevor Project, storyteller, and what I really love a lot is she's the founder of the HelpHUB, inclusive and comprehensive free online destination for mental health resources. Very much needed. So Lisa, you've done so much. So thank you so much for making time for being on the Upshift. Welcome.
It is absolutely my pleasure. And these are the things that the world needs us to be doing right now. We need as many of these kinds of voices. I'm just one of many, many out there. So I appreciate you right back for just amplifying it.
Yes, yes. And we are amplifying the change makers and the thought leaders that are actually doing something about it, which I believe you are one of these folks. You want to tell us how you got to where you are now and the founding and the passion you have for the work that you're doing?
So my story is a little bit of a nuanced one. I am a survivor. I'm a survivor of suicide loss, a multiple 3-time survivor of suicide loss. And so the majority of the work that I do, especially the advocacy work that I do, is focused on suicide awareness and prevention and changing that global narrative around things like mental illness, which of course leads to depression and suicide. And for me, in my case, I've really been accompanied, unfortunately, by suicide my entire life. I was 9 years old when the very first person in my life passed away, and I encountered death just to begin with as a human being. And it was a cousin. He lived up the street. He was a bit older than I was. He did take his life. My parents did explain to me that it was a suicide in the way that they could in the mid-1970s.
Yeah.
And I lost my own father a year later to what I was told was a heart attack. And that was, of course, the narrative that I lived with for 35 years of my life. And I ended up discovering very much by accident that my dad had taken his life. And he was one of those people who didn't show any signs or signals that there was any kind of distress or mental illness or depression. He was one of the happy ones, the ones who wore that mask, and you would just absolutely never know.
Right.
And then 4 years ago, my husband and I lost one of our closest childhood friends who was also kind of in a similar bucket where he didn't really display any signals that would give everybody an idea that something was wrong. So you put all of those losses together, all those suicides together, and it really just shifted something in me, to be honest with you. It definitely blew me up from the inside for the first handful of years after I learned the truth about my father. And then when I put the pieces back together, you and I were talking a little bit offline about the fact that I create a lot of content and do a lot of different things in the world as a writer. And I was in the parenting space for a very long time, for well over a decade, and had written a bunch of parenting books and had a column that focused on work-life balance and parenting. I just hard stopped all of that, really, because I just didn't think it was authentic to the work I needed to be doing in the world. And little by little, I realized that what I needed to be doing was affecting some kind of change in the mental health world and changing stereotypes, breaking stigmas, things like that. And advocacy work led to volunteer work on Lifelines, which led to storytelling with organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm on the board of Samaritans here in Boston now. I run grief groups for people who have lost people to suicide. I have my own podcast, actually, that's out in the world right now. Season 2 just dropped today, and it's called The Survivors. So I'm doing all these different things now because of that watershed moment of learning that my dad had taken his own life.
Yeah, it really makes you can't ignore it. And while you're talking, I'm like, why is it that we don't talk about this? What is so hush hush? And it's the hush hush that isolates, that ends up really I don't want to use the word motivate, but pushes somebody possibly to take their life. But I have a question. What is the number one? Wow, there's so many questions. I just can't remember. I know my listeners are like, wow, there's like lots of questions, but what's the
Yeah.
number one thing right now in this very moment that's the most important in the umbrella of suicide, of people that fall into the possibility? And then my question too is the most important thing, like right now we need to know. And then what's the most important thing we need to do right now?
Okay, I appreciate that, both of those questions so much, and I think that bringing the answers to those questions to light is so incredibly important right now. I think the number one thing for people to realize, and it's kind of a two-part answer to the first question, I think the number one thing for people to recognize and understand is that every single person, I don't care who you are, I don't care what community you're part of, where you live, your economic status, anything about you and your life, it does not change the fact that everybody is struggling with something. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone has diagnosable mental illness, but it just means that we all deal with different kinds of challenges, whatever they may be. And we're not alone. I think that's the biggest thing for people to recognize. And I'm speaking now, especially as we're in the middle of a loneliness epidemic. I'm speaking to the people who are sitting, listening to you and I talk, saying, yeah, okay, that's great if you're talking about somebody who has a spouse or a partner or a family or a community. I'm talking to them too, the people who don't have that, because you may not think you have people out there who can help, but there are people. And this is what's so important for people to know, is that even if you fall in that category of you're alone literally every day, you don't have a support system or a family or a friend community, there are hotlines that you can pick up and call every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where people like me are on the other end who are trained to listen and to hold space and to de-escalate you and to give you resources and to intervene if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And there are support groups, both online and in person. So I want people to know you're not alone, and that's why. The second thing is, what do you do for people? What do I tell people, whether you're in the group who is, if you're struggling you yourself, like you're in crisis, or someone close to you or someone you know that you care about is in crisis, what do you do? Well, the first thing I say is you take inventory. If it's you or if it's someone you know, is there a therapist involved? Is there someone who they are already connected to, who they can lean into? If there isn't one, find one, or help your person find one. And in the meantime, I think every single person out there, wherever you are in the world, and hopefully the people who are listening to us, keep the 988 Crisis and Suicide hotline number on your mind all the time. Put it in your phone. Put it on a Post-it note on the fridge. If you have kids and they're away from home, tell your kids, tell your family members, circulate that so that it becomes as common and as maybe routine to call that number when you're having an emotional crisis as it is to call 911 if your house is on fire.
Okay, 98. Repeat that. Is it
Yes.
988?
It is 988. Yeah, in the same way that we've all been trained for decades to call 911. If someone's breaking into your house or there's a car accident or there's a fire, you pick up the phone and you call 911 and they'll send emergency services.
Yeah.
Well, about 3.5 years ago, the mental health community got together, and there has always been, for years and years and years, there has been an 800 number that is a suicide and crisis hotline that will get you to a counselor like me. But it's an 800 number. It's not necessarily easy to remember. It's not something a lot of people are aware of. So the mental health community got together and said, okay, we need a number a lot like the 911 number, but we need it for when your mental health is on fire.
Yeah.
But whatever that crisis may be, and it doesn't even mean I am actively suicidal trying to take my life now. Maybe I've had a bad breakup, or I lost my job, or I'm feeling isolated, or it's an issue of abuse. There could be a million reasons why someone is in crisis. So we need to have a number that's quick access, that people can remember, that people can call to get help right there in that moment. And that is the 988 crisis and suicide hotline. So you pick up the phone and you just hit the numbers 988 and you will immediately be routed to the US based crisis and suicide hotline number, where there are trained counselors on staff who will be there to listen to whatever it is that's going on in your life, who will hold that space and who will help de-escalate you if you're dysregulated, or who can help you find services, or maybe a therapist in your area, or maybe a program in your area to help you.
We're going to revisit that. Before we leave, we're going to remind everybody that I think that's wonderful. If that's the least you get from this podcast, just remember 988, and that a mental crisis is as important, and possibly more, more or less or whatever, but is as important as a 911.
Absolutely.
And to make that 988 so common, to think, oh, well, I am. And then it's admitting. So it brings me to my next question, because I've got a couple of friends that teeter sometimes. They have a therapist, they're on some regulatory medicine, but things will happen in their life and they do tend to draw drama, but it's not ones. They get 1, 2, 3. It's like, oh my God, sledgehammer. And I check in on them, but it's scary when they kind of go offline for a bit. What do you do as a friend of someone who has a tendency, because they've told you, hey, I've wanted to off myself, or I've tried and I wasn't successful. What do you do as a friend? And these are people that I'm close to. This is somebody that I would, and I have sent somebody to that person's house to make sure they weren't alone. But what is your advice to someone like me who has a friend like that?
Well, I think you're obviously, from what I've heard you say, you're doing the right things. Just know that by checking in with that person. So there are lots of different ways that we can do a pulse check on a person. You can, if it's a good friend, but maybe you don't live in the same area, what you just said, send someone potentially over to that person's house to do kind of a wellness check. You can also call, if you're really concerned that someone's life is in danger, that they're either going to harm themselves or harm someone else, you can call 988. And you can, or in this case, see, this is interesting. In this case, you might want to call a 911 number and say, that gets you to the authorities and say, I'm suspecting that someone may not be well. Can you do a wellness check? And that sends potentially like a police cruiser over to a house. You can also potentially call 988, and a lifeline counselor like me can also help you make that call. So there are a couple different ways to do that. You can also, a lot of it has to do with asking probing questions. You said in your case, with the people that they're a little bit more open about their struggle. So there are those two sets of people, the extroverts who make you think that everything is great, but inside they're in crisis. Or there are the people like your friends who may be more open about it and they will talk about it. Either way, the more information you know about what's going on in their head, the better. So it starts with how we question people. See, we all have that inclination. We want to know what's wrong. We want to be there to help, but it's so terrifying to find out if somebody is in crisis and then thinking about what to do to not make it worse. So a lot of it has to do with how we question people. We want to kind of check the box and be like, hey, how you doing? You okay? Is everything good? Yeah. So that's kind of how we check the mental box of, like, we just checked in on our friend, right? We asked them how they were doing. And they probably gave us the answer like, well, I'm good. Most people say, yeah, I'm okay. I'm good. Or I'm living my best life if they're an extrovert. And what the problem is that that's a very closed question. It doesn't necessitate more than a 1 or a 2 word answer, like yes, no, or I'm good. So you want to ask probing questions. Like, how's your mental health? Or I know you were really under a lot of stress because of your job being, potentially eliminated. How are you dealing with that? Like, the more you dig in and you encourage them to answer your questions, the better baseline you're going to get for where they really, really are. And then it goes back to also some of the things that I said earlier about You can absolutely ask someone directly, and this is so important. Ask someone directly if you think they're considering harming themselves or someone else. You say those words to them directly. Are you thinking of harming yourself or taking your life? Or are you thinking of harming someone else? And you have to ask with really direct language, even though it's terrifying, because that instantly identifies you as someone they can trust. You're a safe space, and you're validating that whatever it is that they're feeling or dealing with is real. And that's huge for someone who's in that state of mind. That just that validation piece alone, and then holding space and listening to whatever it is that's going on with them. When you do that, it actually has been proven again and again and again that that reduces the likelihood that someone's actually going to harm themselves or someone else.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
empowering, tough, like you said. I'm glad you said that's the hardest question to ask, but
It
if you
is.
can, that's the question to ask.
Definitely it is.
So, do you think that communicating the growth or the rise in suicides, the rise in depression, the rise in isolation, do you think communicating that? Do you think we're finding out that is more common, so that people can be on alert of their neighbors, of their community, of the people they sit next to in their community gatherings, whatever that is? Yeah. Do you think that's becoming more common, or do we need more? Do we need some billboards?
Yes, yes, and yes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the short answer, is that yes, it's becoming more common, but it's becoming more common because people are actively doing what you and I are doing right now, which is to have a conversation about suicide or to have a conversation about mental wellness or mental illness in the mainstream. We're using these really big, scary words that won't be as big and scary the more of us who use them.
Right.
So that's an issue. And the other thing, the other really kind of hidden benefit, I think personally, as someone who just spends like 110% of my time in this space having these conversations, is that it identifies the fact that we're all dealing with something. So it automatically takes the temperature down a little bit and makes it more normal to have these conversations. It puts it in perspective, like, oh God, you mean you're going through that? I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you're talking with a group of friends and one person makes a comment about maybe they had an argument with their boyfriend or their girlfriend or their kid pissed them off or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, the thing that nobody wanted to talk about, one person started talking and then everybody chimes in and everybody's dealing with the same stress or they're dealing with the same challenge or they're dealing with the same aggravation. And that's what happens. That's what talking about things like mental health and suicide in particular, or grief, these things that we don't talk about, that's what happens. It normalizes it, and it gives people the understanding that I'm not the only one out there who's stressed out and who's feeling anxious and who maybe is having panic attacks or maybe is having a grief attack or maybe doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning. That completely takes the temperature down to a point where people are willing to be part of the conversation now. They don't feel alone.
Right. So you normalize it. You talk about it, and you find out there's so many others out there and that you're not alone. That's one of the biggest things. I do this community dance on every Monday night. Anybody can come. It's not a big thing. We do like 7 different movements. A lot of it's silly, a lot of it's fun. We talk in a group beforehand, and they really seem to love that because it's a safe space where they can really talk about their frustrations. And then we dance it out. And I mean, there's some moments that we scream. There's a song called Scream and Shout, and we just love it. And we learn to say no really loud. And it's in the vein of preventing, hopefully, the buildup of the sadness, depression, loneliness, anger. I mean, anger. It's not just always depression. It's just totally so pissed off you just, want to end it because you can't find an outlet for it.
Yeah.
Is to find an outlet, talk about it, but also for me, it's about getting it out of your body, right?
Yeah.
Wringing that depression out.
Yeah. Well, it's like the old radiator analogy. Remember the old radiators with the steam? If you don't bleed that radiator and turn that crank every once in a while, that whole system's going to blow. And our emotional infrastructure works the same way, that if we keep everything bottled up, not only are we just going to continue on the same, sometimes negative thought loops because there's no other influence coming into our head. We're not talking about it. So the way we think about something or process something is restricted to just what we're doing in our own head.
Yes.
It's when we have the conversations with the people on the dance floor or the people in the group or the people on the helpline that you can process in a different way, from a different perspective, maybe get someone else's input, and it changes what you're thinking, hopefully for the better, maybe not always, but I think probably more often than not, it can create a sense of a deeper understanding, or just, more of a grounded sense of, okay, I was getting crazy in my own head. I'm hearing myself say it out loud, or you're saying it back to me.
Yes.
And okay, it's not everything I thought it was, or it's more manageable than I believed it was, or any of those things. You all of a sudden have a different perspective. And I think that's so valuable. I love that you do that with that group. I actually, one of the things you and I were talking about was the platform that I started, the mental health platform, the HelpHUB.
Yeah.
One of the things I've done is create a program here on the North Shore of Boston. We're about an hour north of Boston. And it's called the Walk Talk Collective. And it's been picked up by a number of our local YMCA chapters here as a part of their wellness initiative, because it's the same premise as what you're saying your group is. I meet every Monday morning at 6:30 a.m., rain or shine, 12 months a year. And we meet and we do a walk and we do a talk. And it's designed to be a safe space where people can move their bodies and people can connect about the things that maybe we don't typically talk about in the mainstream that we should talk about, like the things that we're afraid of, or, the things that we're challenged by. And it's exactly the same idea. So when I see people doing something like that in different ways, like doing it with dance, I think it's fantastic.
I got a question for you.
Yep.
In that group, in your walk talk, what's the percentage of males versus females?
I would say that at the moment it's 100% female. I have absolutely had males. One of my groups, it was pretty even. Another, we have them, as I said, in different locations that are run by different YMCA chapters north of Boston. And one of them, the one that I facilitate every week, has definitely had men come and join us, but it's predominantly women right now. We're definitely trying hard to balance that scale a little bit. I think bringing everybody together in the same capacity would just be such a deeper, richer experience.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to grab the guys and bring them in.
Well,
How about you?
I asked you that because, women are more outward with their emotions. Men in our culture, of course, they're not taught that is a cool thing to do. And it's tragic. It's treating men just like they're not even human. So I was curious about that. Okay, columnist, podcast, app creator. What's next for you?
Well, let's see. We talked about the HelpHUB, which is the platform that I created last fall that has been designed as a place to encourage anyone in any community to come and find the unique resources that they might need in terms of crisis support networks, resources, groups, online therapy. People can find tools, people can find video content, anything that can support their overall wellness, regardless of what community you're in, because it's very specialized for 16 different communities and categories. One of the things on the horizon is a very exciting, I'm not even going to say what it is yet because I can't say it yet, but I have an extremely exciting new partnership with a very, very large organization that focuses on treatment options. And we are about to announce our partnership. I'm actually integrating them into the HelpHUB, which is going to be incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's coming. And I continue to add categories to that. The biggest thing that I think I'm working on right now, in addition to my podcast, The Survivors, is I have a new book coming out, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. And it's been a long time coming. This has definitely been the longest book life cycle I've ever worked on. It's probably been in the works now for about 5 years. Ironically, right before you and I hopped on this interview, I just wrapped a call with my publisher, kind of wrapping up all the loose ends for that book. And so it's going to go out into layout and design pretty soon, and it should be out in the spring, if not a little sooner, I hope. So that's something very big and beautiful that's coming soon.
Wow, that's fantastic. A book, huh?
Mm.
So let me ask one last question, because we're getting close to the time. What keeps you motivated? I mean, like you said, you're kind of hovering in this world that is very sad and sometimes uncontrollable. How do you keep yourself motivated? How do you, I don't know, keep from falling down?
I do fall down. That's the truth of it. I do fall down. I do get affected by it. I'm an empath, and I'm one of those highly, highly sensitive people who feels everybody's feels, and if it's something that's draining you, it just automatically drains me. That's just how I operate, which is so funny that I'm in this space that is really predominantly about mental illness and loss and grief and suicide. But I think honestly what keeps me in it and helps me every day to realize that I am in exactly the place that I am supposed to be and doing exactly the work that I'm supposed to be doing is when I hear someone give me feedback from an interview or from a podcast or from a book or a body of work or something, and they find me, they email me, or they slide into my DMs, or they somehow connect with me and say, what you said or what you did changed my life for the better, or I learned about something that saved someone else's life. I mean, I've had calls like that where people say, I did not know about the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline number until I, for instance, listened to your podcast. And that number ended up saving someone's life who is part of my orbit. Like, that's when I get messages like that, or have someone just say, I never, ever shared my story before, and then I heard you share yours, and it either motivated or inspired me. Like, that's the end game for me. It's to make that impact. I don't share this very often, only because I just, for whatever reason, I don't. But I wear a little bracelet on my wrist, and I've had it for years and years. And for those of you who are only listening to the audio version, it's got a little copper disc on it, and you get to pick the word that you have imprinted on that. And this has to be 10 years old at this point. And my word is impact. And every single day I look at that bracelet when I put it on, and it reinfuses me with that desire to do whatever I can do with whatever lived experience or story or knowledge I have to make an impact. And as long as people tell me I'm doing it, I will keep doing it.
Man, Lisa, you are so inspiring.
Thank
really,
you.
Tears are in my eyes, and I've got a little lump in my throat. I just want you to know I feel it too. I'm empathic, but I feel that you're making a huge wave. All right, couple of recaps.
Okay.
988. 988,
Yes.
Anybody in any mental
Yes.
crisis, whether you're going through it, and if you feel like somebody's getting ready to do something, say something, act.
Yes, exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, and then the other thing is the HelpHUB.
Yep.
What is that? Is that a downloadable app? What is it?
The HelpHUB is not an app, not yet, although you asked me what's coming next. That could be something someday soon that might be coming next. But at the moment, it's the HelpHUB, and the way to get there is just going online and go to thehelphub.co, and that will take you to an online platform. And the very first thing you'll see, which is really the foundational piece of the HelpHUB, is this grid. It's very aesthetic. It's very easy to know what I'm talking about when you go there. As soon as you're on the landing page, you're going to see images. You're going to see a whole grid of images. There are 16 of them right now, soon to be 17 or 18 of them pretty soon. And they're all buttons. And each one has an image that represents a certain community, like, for instance, the BIPOC community, or the Latinx community, or the elderly, or veterans, or the AAPI community. And you will click on that. You'll say, okay, I'm part of the BIPOC community and I need some mental health resources that are unique to me, because what I might need could be something very different than someone in the queer community might need. And that's the point of the HelpHUB. It's to be able to provide help and support to everybody under the same roof, but to your specific needs. So let's say you're part of the BIPOC community and you say, I need a therapist, or I need some mindfulness information, or I need a crisis lifeline. You click on that category and that immediately opens up a page that has an index with a logo for each organization, a direct link, a little bit of a description. Everything is alphabetized, everything has been vetted, and you just search down through and find the type of help that you're looking for. Click that one link and you go right to that help directly. So it puts help or resources or tools one, maybe 2 clicks away. And the most important thing that I kept in mind as I was creating this platform was, when you're in a chaotic headspace, when you're grieving, or when you're suicidal, or when you're depressed, you are not in the headspace to figure out, who do I call? What do I do? Where do I begin? You just need help, and you need it yesterday.
Right.
So if you go to the helphub.co, you can look at an image and say, okay, I'm Latinx. I'm going to click on that button, and okay, here are 27 different links that I might be able to utilize to get the information or the help or the resource that I need. And I click on it and I'm right there instantaneously. So that's the driver behind the HelpHUB. It also has all the content, books, columns that I've ever written. I have a YouTube channel. My podcast, The Survivors, pipes into that as well. And I have a very deep archive of tools that I've created, curated. Like, for instance, you might go to the toolkit because you think someone you know is struggling with their mental health, but you don't know how to ask. Like what you and I talked about earlier. You don't know what to say to them or how to say it. So you go to the toolkit on the HelpHUB, and it says how to talk to someone who you think is struggling. You click on that infographic. It's going to give you the language. It's going to give you the wording. It's going to explain what to do, how to say it. And it's right there for you, or what to say to someone who's grieving, or what not to say to someone who's grieving. All of those kinds of resources. Maybe you're dysregulated and you need to get grounded. I have grounding exercises in the toolkit. So everything is pretty generic, but they're all shareable, printable, downloadable. And so that's I guess the HelpHUB in a nutshell.
Wow. Lisa Sugarman, your middle name should be Impact. Honestly, really, you've done so much. I mean, I know there's more you feel like you could do, but darling, I feel like you have made such a huge ripple in such a tough subject, you know?
I hope so. I appreciate you saying that. I really do.
Well, that's amazing. I am honored to have you on my show. Thank you so, so much for being here. And I hope to see you down the road sometime.
I will come back anytime and have any conversation you ever want to have. It was absolutely my pleasure to be here.
All right, Lisa. See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening today, and to me and to Lisa Sugarman. Wow, what a powerhouse she is, and on such a tough subject, but one that needs to be spoken about more and more. So thanks again. I'm your host, Angel Howard, and I would love to get to know you better. Send me an email at angel@angelhoward.co, or book me for a speaking engagement. I have a lot of fun things to share with a group of any of your people. Come on over to my website, angelhoward.co, or dive deeper into your own journey of self-discovery and buy my book, Issues in Your Tissues, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Until next time.